What's poppin', guys? Gar Champion here. Today, I will be discussing the Transparent World, its known users, how it's obtained, and then we are going to be diving into spoiler territory past the Infinity Castle. When that time comes, I will make sure I give you guys a heads up if you don't want manga spoilers. The Transparent World was formally introduced in the Infinity Castle movie when Tanjiro gets a flashback of his father putting it to use to kill a large bear in front of him, then Tanjiro putting it to use to behead Akaza. The Transparent World is a skill that allows the user to see others' internal body structures, such as internal organs and muscle contractions. With this knowledge, the user can find vital points in their enemy and predict attacks based on their muscle movements. When in this state, everything is moving in slow motion because you're able to move extremely fast, which is why it feels like things are going in slow motion. So how does one enter this state? When your head becomes clear, you can enter the Transparent World, as stated by Tanjiro's father. At the limits of your strength, you solely focus on your target, your senses all become one, and your breathing is under control. And all these are required to experience the Transparent World. Here, let's have you try it out. I believe in you. Focus. Clear your mind. Hey, I think you're doing it. Keep going. So how was it? I'm sure you saw all the caffeine that I've been consuming lately, how it's affecting me, and I'm sure you saw the subscribe button as well, so make sure you hit that if you aren't already. So I said earlier that this was formally introduced in the Infinity Castle, but it was actually utilized earlier in the series but never touched on. When Tanjiro went to slay Huntengu's main body, he sensed that he was in Resentment's heart. This was shown sniffing it out, but it was actually him using the Transparent World to a degree. Let's go through the checklist. He was solely focused on slaying Huntengu because he did not want Nezuko's sacrifice to go to waste for him to escape. He was at his limits by fighting all night long and still had a Demon Slayer mark. It was safe to say his breathing was in control since he was locked in on his target. Another special someone who was close to having this ability was Inosuke, actually. During the fight with Akaza, Tanjiro was trying to figure out why Akaza was able to predict his movements and attack the vital points. He revisited an interaction with Inosuke, where he explained that he could feel if someone was looking at him, even to the point where he can sense harmful intent from someone. He demonstrates this to Tanjiro by having him look somewhere on his body. He was able to tell him exactly where he was looking. I say Inosuke was close to the Transparent World because he never saw someone's internal structure, but a key component was that he didn't have to solely focus on his target in order to sense this. His survival instinct was just way above par compared to others. This was too similar not to mention, so I wanted to address this at least. Another honorable mention is that people have speculated that Kyoto Rengoku, the Flame Hashira, was able to utilize this ability. Like Inosuke, I believe he was close, but not quite there. The part in question is the scene right after the Mugen train crashed and Rengoku approaches the heavily injured Tanjiro. He knows where Tanjiro's fatal wound was, coached him through the stopping of the bleeding with his breathing, and knew when the blood stopped. So here's why I don't think he had access to this world. It's fairly easy to spot where someone is bleeding because you can see it go through their clothing, and then you can see when it stops because the blood stops flowing. It's pretty basic and obvious observation skills. For lack of a basic answer though, he demonstrated insane survival skills when protecting his own body while asleep while he was under attack. So I think his intelligence was the culprit in this situation and not the Transparent World. If he had access to the Transparent World, he could have done what Tanjiro did and basically turned off his fighting spirit and defeated Akaza then and there. And who knows, maybe not turned into a donut. So that's about all I have for the spoiler-free section. So now would be your time to hop off. Since you won't see the end card for a recommended video, feel free to check out the time card right here. This video is pretty cool. Okay, spoiler people, let's go over the known users of the Transparent World. We have Yoriichi, Kokushibo, Tanjiro, Guillaume, Muchiro, and Obadai. So here's where things get a little dicey. You'll see in every other YouTube video and sources online saying that Demon Slayer mark is required in order to access this ability. I disagree, and I plan to prove that with this video. Let's go over the criteria on how to access the Transparent World again. You must be pushed to your limits, extreme focus on your target, clear head, and supposedly have a Demon Slayer mark. We'll start with Yoriichi. He was born with the Demon Slayer mark and access to the Transparent World. This was demonstrated as he was always by his mother's weak side, since he could see what's going on where his brother could not. He later used his Transparent World to see into Muzan's body to find out how to kill it and created the 13th form of sun breathing because of it. Kokushibo, a master of breathing styles, and is marked. He uses the Transparent World upon meeting Muchiro in the Infinity Castle and can even tell that he is related to him. Then obviously in the fight against Guillaume and Sana, he seems to be able to use his ability effortlessly, but that could be because he's had a lot of time to perfect it. This is weird to me because with the demons, their forms relate in some way to their personalities, interests, skill set, and so on. The thing in question for Kokushibo is his mark. Is this an aesthetic that carried through his demon transformation, or is he able to uphold the requirements for a Demon Slayer mark constantly? He is a demon where stamina is endless, so it's possible. Here's where it gets dicey though. when he goes berserk and changes form, his mark is no longer there. He isn't shown using the transparent world here, so it's an interesting call out. Wasn't really expecting a debatable topic like this to pop up in the middle of the script. So yeah, let me know your take in the comments below. Love to hear your take. To conclude, his skill set carried over from his human form like Kaigaku, and his demonic abilities allowed him to be able to meet the requirements to use this with ease. Despite being blind, Gyome is able to obtain the skill by trying to figure out how Kokushibo is so efficient with his attacks. He has an idea of how he's able to accomplish this, so he changes the flow of his blood. Yes, you heard me correctly, he changes the flow of his own blood. And is able to get a surprise attack on it because of it. In this state, he was able to gain this ability and later coach Obanai on how to use it. At the time, he was marked and concentrated solely on Kokushibo, and those requirements were met in that way. Michiru unlocked his ability at the same time that Gyome did, and they performed a synced attack where they both deceived Kokushibo. Michiru was solely focused on getting the attack off since he is heavily injured and only had so much time left, all while marked. We know that Michiru unlocked this ability because we got some dialogue from Kokushibo. While he's just sitting there being stabbed in the stomach, he noticed that Michiru's eyes were one that can see the transparent world. Obanai was able to access this with Gyome's help, but it was only for a short period of time, so he was not able to uphold it. My thoughts here is that he was unable to maintain focus as he was blinded and seeking help from Kubamaru. He was also marked though. So far it's not really looking good for my case. Just bear with me. Tanjiro. He was shown using the transparent world to behead a giant man-eating bear. I'd say he was at his upper limits of his strength due to him being ill. He is a master of breathing due to his explanations of the Hino Kamikagura. Now the part in question is his mark. This is debatable because him and Tanjiro had the same mark on their head, and I don't believe that the mark on both of their heads is a Demon Slayer mark. Here's why. As the story progresses, we see Tanjiro's mark transform. His so-called burn mark changed shape after the final selection by fighting the Hand Demon, where this new shaped mark carries through for the entirety of the series except for when he has the Demon Slayer mark. Then while the credentials were met when fighting Gyutaro in the Entertainment District, he obtained the Demon Slayer mark and took the shape that it does for Yurichi and Kokushibo. That mark goes away and then back to his original form. Genya mentions that during the Hashira training, his normal mark is getting darker. So as Tanjiro gets stronger, mastered his abilities, he developed the mark. It was even stated by Amane that he developed it first and the others around him could pick it up. It's a fair argument to say that Tanjiro wasn't developed enough to access the power-ups of being marked prior to the Entertainment District, which is why no one he interacted with prior was able to obtain the mark. But my whole thing is that the mark developed and changed where Tanjiro had the same base mark as Tanjiro. Tanjiro claims that the mark came from boiling water being spilled on him at a young age. But I can also see why his father would intentionally try and cover up the Demon Slayer mark to avoid being targeted by Muzan. Even then, the scar disappears and it is replaced after the final selection. So that's where it does not make sense to me. So we know the Mark ones die at the age of 25. So when did Tanjiro's father die? 25. It was stated that he died of illness and not by having a mark. So if he was indeed supposed to die, he would not have passed away to an illness that he was dealing with for some time, leaving me to believe that he was not as developed as Tanjiro to obtain the mark. Let's also say hypothetically that the Kamado family could be born with the markings like Yorichi. Then there would be some sort of knowledge of the family being cursed like the Ubuyashiki family bloodline, making me believe that the markings are gained through performing the Hino Kamikagura. So my belief is based on that. Tanjiro is one of the few who could obtain the mark in the modern era, most likely due to the knowledge of the Hino Kamikagura, sun breathing, but it had to be unlocked. And he unlocked this ability for it to appear by performing the Hino Kamikagura alongside his water breathing and mastering it. Not much else is known about Tanjiro's past other than the fact that there was a point where he struggled to perform the Kagura dance for longer periods of time, but eventually could do it all night long. He had a cloth covering his face, so he could have had a mark when performing the Kagura dance. He also could have hidden his mark by putting boiling water on it, which is how Tanjiro got his scar. Both of these are valid arguments and can't really be disproved, but I have one key piece of evidence that will support my theory. When demonstrating the transparent world to Tanjiro by decapitating the bear, he was not marked. So based off my theory that the scar on both of their heads are not developed Demon Slayer marks, and almost a precursor to the mark development, this disproves that the mark is a requirement in my eyes, and the fact that the others who have gained access to this ability was just a coincidence. Let me know your take on the topic, and if I missed a key piece of evidence that will disprove my theory. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Peace out.